sounded so shy. Hi. Welcome to Historia.
It is hot in here, but I'm also wearing a coat.
It's hot in here. It's cold outside.
Yes, it is. I can't wait for dinner. We're having burnt ends.
Burton's?
Burnt ends.
What?
Yeah, it's like part of steak.
Oh, the burnt ends?
Yeah. That's what they're called, but...
Burn-ins? That's all I heard.
We got them at Costco. They're really good. But
Oh.
they have pulled pork at Costco that you literally boil.
Really?
Yeah, and it's so freaking good. It, like, the taste of the pulled pork is just amazing.
Oof, I'm getting hungry now.
I love Costco's food. Like, their ravioli, I always get the chicken one, but the last time we went there, they didn't have it. So we got lobster. So we'll see
Fancy.
if I'm allergic.
Oh, you don't know?
I don't know, because I've never really had seafood, except fish sticks.
Ew.
I don't even think that's, like, real fish.
All seaweed. Seaweed? Oh my God. Seafood is gross. I really can't talk today, guys. I'm really struggling. So it's a good day to have a podcast. My brain is a little dead right now. But anyway, we have a very exciting few episodes coming up. Jamie's doing a big topic.
Yes, I am. I haven't even finished my research because there's so much to it. I literally only got up to half of this person's life.
It's a person.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Oh my. So we didn't have to do with the last two episodes.
Yes.
It's not an artist. It's an artist. Yeah, I couldn't tell by your face. No? What have to do with the museum?
Do you want me to get into it?
Yeah, I'm just so curious.
Are you ready for this week's episode?
I'm nervous, but yes.
Okay. On this week's episode, we are going to be discussing a man who, for the last couple of my episodes, have wormed his way into.
Okay.
This man with determination and hungry for power would become at one time in history as one of the most powerful figures. A man for war, the finer things, and change would bring France change by storm. Today we introduce Napoleon Bonaparte.
Oh, yes! Buddies! If you listen to last week's episode.
Yeah, that's why when you brought that up, I was like, oh, this is perfect.
Yes!
The last 3 episodes.
Oh my God, I'm very excited.
Yeah. I also have a book.
Oh, exciting.
It's a fat book. And as you can see how far I've gone into it.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's called Napoleon's Wars, an International History by Charles A. Staley. It's pretty good. Like what it says is that it's not like a biography of him. Like I used other websites, especially Napoleon.org, like that one.
Oh, Napoleon.org.
Yeah, he is huge. I didn't realize how much there is to his life.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, there is so much because he loved war. He loved battle. So he did so much of that. But yeah, it's crazy. It's a big book. I think there's like over 500 pages. Yeah, about 600 pages.
You got to tell me if they mention the bunnies at any point.
Yeah, I haven't gotten that far yet. I haven't even gotten to 1807 yet.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So,
and you already have like 3 episodes planned, maybe?
Yeah, there might be 4, depending on how much.
It's hard to tell until you like start talking.
Exactly. So I have the first 2 for us this week, but I'll get started on 3 and maybe 4. We'll see.
Yeah.
But because this dude's around for quite a bit, but the picture on it, like, look at the horse. Like, its eye is so creepy.
Oh my God. Is it red?
Yeah.
He looks high.
Yeah. But
it like cuts off his face.
I know.
From the book to see his whole head.
But I got this.
Oh, his arm's in the back of the book.
Oh yeah. I got this for, I think, a couple bucks when I was at a book fair thing.
It looks like the Star Wars print. Wars.
Oh yeah, it
Kinda.
does. Yeah.
Ooh, I'm excited to find out about. I literally don't know anything about him.
I didn't either because I didn't really take any classes in college that dealt with France.
Yeah.
Most of mine I tried to stick with ancient. So my knowledge about like kind of the Revolutionary War is kind of sporadic from the basic things that I've learned in the past. But
so what made you choose him? Did you see the book?
Well, yeah, I saw the book and I was like, oh, I need to cover him because there has to be a lot to him.
Yeah.
He freaking took France by storm. Like he planned it.
Yeah.
But I was like, and then I started looking at Ludwig and I saw that he had an interaction with Napoleon and then the Louvre has an interaction with Napoleon.
Oh.
And so I was like, this is a great time to do a big episode, especially on him. And this book has been like super helpful in just kind of explaining it. But as I discussed last week, that there were some things that were just like a little difficult to read, and that's like military strategy.
Yeah.
And there's so many different names too that you have to remember because he runs into so many. For being a loner, he runs into a lot of people.
Ooh.
No one likes him.
Can we call him Nappy Boy?
Nappy Boy. Napo.
Napo.
Sir Know-how.
I love it.
But yeah, there's so much military strategy and stuff that I'm just like, I have to think back because the only military class I took, I think, was World War II. And that's very different military strategy from the mid 1700s.
Yeah.
Early 1800s. So, but yeah.
Cool.
So, well, let's get into it. To introduce our man of the hour, let's begin with his family because they're pretty significant in a sense to his development or lack thereof. His father was Carlo Maria di Bonaparte, a prominent legal official who was on the side of the resistance leader Pasquale Paoli in the once country of Genoa. Yeah, Genoa. But they call them Genoese for, I think, the people.
Oh.
But the fight between the land and the French eventually would have the country lost, and the French would now... So there was a war that would go on, and the French came in and just like pretty much took over the country. So
Gotcha.
It was no longer called Genoa. It would then become Corsica in 1768.
Isn't in Princess Diaries, isn't it Genova?
Yeah.
It's almost the same.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue.
But Paoli fled then, and Carlo was left with a forgotten nobility title because he was, he pretty much worked with him in a sense. So when Paoli fled and he was just like, everybody else looked at him and was like, you were on his side. Mm-hmm. So his nobility title kind of just didn't really make any sense. Like he lost it.
Oh, okay.
In a sense, because they're like, you're a traitor.
Oof.
Mm-hmm. Alongside Carlo was his wife, Maria Letizia Ramolino. The two married in 1764, and during this ordeal, she stuck with her husband's side. I put a note. I was like, I mean, she kind of had to at this time.
I was thinking that too.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to leave someone at this time because then you would probably end up as a spinster.
Yeah.
So that's how it be sometimes. Carlo, knowing that if he stayed allegiant to the resistance, he would surely end up dead, and he actually decided to switch his allegiance to France. Mm. He was like, I'm on their side, quote unquote. But it's like, in that sense, you kind of had to be. I mean, like a lot of people, and just this is like offshoot, but in Germany in World War II, like there were so many Germans that didn't support the war, but like in fear of being killed.
Yeah.
They were just like, yeah, go Hitler? Question mark?
Question mark?
Yeah. During this time, as he was switching sides and trying to get back his title and keeping his like legal offices, because he was a lawyer. So, yeah.
Fancy.
They would have their many, many children this is very important for the development of, like, the childhood development of Napoleon.
How many kids?
Out of the 12
Oh.
that Carlo and Maria would go on to have, or I guess Maria, I feel like, is common. I think it was more so of because when I was doing my research, they called her Letizia. So I think Maria might have been a communion name.
Oh, okay.
Because that is a very common name, because Maria.
Yeah.
My middle name's Marie. It's all freaking basic, but you know what? I think it's pretty.
It is.
But it's a communion name too. So out of the 12 that they would have, only 8 would survive into adolescence.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so, but that's very common for that time.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to have so many kids just because you want one to end up fine.
Right.
Because you never know if they're going to die at a young age. So those who survived were Joseph, Napoleon, Lucien, Elisa, Louis, Pauline, Caroline, and Jerome.
So 8.
Yeah. So there would be 8 that survived.
Wow.
Yeah. So Napoleon, of course, was the second eldest. So I pretty much did it in order.
Okay.
But yeah, so they had their daughters, but there was a lot of males that they had. So
yeah.
Competition was always there.
Fun.
Yeah. Carlo, in the new integration of Corsica and the power now controlled by France, he adapted pretty well. He still held his legal offices as a lawyer and worked well with the country people and the higher status. This would eventually lead him to regain his noble status, which would help shape Napoleon's future. So because he worked with more like of the elites and whatnot, he wasn't rich. They weren't like they weren't poor, but they also weren't like super rich.
Yeah.
Because even if you held a noble title, that doesn't mean that you're rich.
Right.
That means your family was at some point, but like you can lose it as easily as you get it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it was more so of just the connections that he have that would be important for Napoleon in his future. It wasn't so much as the money, because if they didn't have the connections that they had, Napoleon probably wouldn't have become emperor of France, because the connections are what guided him into the life that he made for himself.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. I always just assumed he was rich.
So it's a lot of what ifs.
Yeah.
Pretty much. It's like that. I watched that What If show. Oh my God. It's so good.
I haven't seen it yet.
Recommend it. Okay, I lost my place.
Recommend it. 10 out of 10.
Carlo would also be elected as a representative for the nobility in the province of Ajaccio. Yeah, for 3 different years. It wasn't all at the same time, but it was like 3 just separate. Like I think 2 years were right after another, and then I think after a couple years, he got back that position that he held.
Oh, okay.
Now, this man definitely had a lot of pull for his children, which this helped. I think he had more like of a relationship with his brother Joseph and Lucien, because I didn't really see anything else about his sisters or like his other brothers as much. But then again, they were pretty big age difference, like age gap, because Joseph and Napoleon were the eldest.
Oh, okay.
Where Jerome he was already almost 20 by the time Jerome was born.
Yeah.
Like, he was already up there.
Dang.
So let's talk about one of Carlo's and Maria's influential sons, Napoleon Bonaparte. Born in Corsica's capital, I think it's Ajaccio. Yeah.
That sounds right. We'll go with that.
Let me know if I'm wrong. On August 15, 1769. What I found interesting in my research is that he was baptized not until July 1771, which is rare for this specific time. It was way different than when we discussed with Beethoven.
Oh, yeah.
Because
that was like right away, wasn't it?
Yeah, his was within 24 hours.
Yeah.
But
in case they died.
Yeah, but I think with his mother, she was just like, let's just see if he does survive.
Oh, wow.
I don't know. It could be different. Who knows?
Dang.
I have not looked into Napoleon's story much before, but I have scene discussed that though he was not tied to nobility, this meant that he was poor. So this isn't the case. I did a little bit more research of just seeing how poor they were. But they honestly just kept their they were frugal. They were pretty frugal people. Carlos still held good wealth, especially from his wife's dowry, because that still existed during this time. But they still lived comfortably. And with his ties with good people, this meant that his children could go to good schools. To keep costs down and live well, they only purchased what was needed from the market, so like alcohol.
Of course.
But when it came to foods, the family grew it themselves. But they would purchase wine from like neighbors and stuff because they would make it, like whoever grew it and whatnot, they would just make their own wine, so they didn't have to go into like the market to buy it. But just like specific like pastries or like breads and stuff, that the things that they didn't grow. But when it came to probably like vegetables and maybe even had like a small farm, they just grew it all themselves, so they didn't have to pay for it. So they obviously had quite enough land to be able to do that.
Yeah. Jeez.
This family, though established, was by no means a perfect one. They all had their faults, which in this case led to problems. There are many stories of Napoleon being a cruel child who spoke his mind more critically and didn't think of the outcomes that would be in return. This could have been because of his father. Carlo, being a man of business, was very seldom around his children. This would be a lack of affection to give his second son, which Napoleon was lacking trying to please. There was also his mother. She was around, but in a way that lacked motherly affection and came off more of a woman who lived in the house than an actual mother herself. Wow. To put it plainly, she didn't give a shit about her children. She just had them.
Because she was probably told to have them.
And being like a lawyer and probably having to go to different houses and stuff like that, like his dad just wasn't around. He kind of just didn't shape him, didn't teach him things, didn't give him the father figure that he needed.
Yeah.
And his mother didn't care. She was just having kids, just pretty much just shoving him away. And he's not the eldest, so he doesn't hold that responsibility that the eldest have, but he also wasn't the youngest. So when you have 8 siblings, you're probably in his childhood there was probably at least 5 or 6 of them, but still that's high competition to get any affection, especially when your parents aren't giving it to you in the first place.
Yeah, when they're already too busy.
Exactly. Which is really unfortunate. This lack of love in the house would soon intertwine with the competitiveness of any attention from his other siblings. With 8 of them around the house, it was difficult to be the shining star even for a minute. It was all about one upping another, especially when it came to your education. Napoleon's lack of affection from his parents and trying to compete with his siblings would eventually cause behavioral traits that are not to put it plainly. To get the upper hand of his siblings, Napoleon resorted to violence and bullying. The beatings he received would make him want to use violence and strive to have control and power. He wanted to be someone powerful and big from all the times that other people made him feel small.
Wow.
Yeah. So for some kids, everybody has a different personality, and some kids, they will cower, kind of just be more fearful, or they just feel they get depressed and stuff. But for him, it made him angry. And so he chose to resort to violence and bullying because he thought that was the way to do it, because he was probably never told any other way.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's not okay.
Right.
It probably just happened, and he was just like, no one's telling me no, so I'm just going to keep going with it.
Wow.
Yeah. And I know that, like, there is all that thing about him being, like, super sure, having the Napoleon complex and stuff, but making him, like, he was small. But I think it was more so, like, this guy was powerful. He was super influential for the French people, But, and honestly, like his size didn't really matter at that point because everybody was super short.
Yeah,
then.
that's true.
But with him, he just wanted to be powerful. Since he was younger, he was like, I can take these people on. I want to be better. I want to be stronger. And that's the competitive nature that he has in him. He has to be number one because he's always been number two for a son. But also, he probably wasn't the number one son. Because Joseph, he was pretty successful for himself as well as Lucian. So Napoleon probably thought, like, I have to be the best. I have to do the best. I have to be the most successful. How can I do that?
Yeah, he has to like prove himself.
Exactly. All of this wild behavior would lead him to become a loner. Napoleon was in a world of his own when he read historical texts and spent hours doing so. So instead of being out in the playground, chilling with the other people, swinging on the swings, being a child, getting to know people, make friends, he was inside reading. Oof. Which, like, I mean, there's nothing wrong with being a loner, but he chose violence.
Well, and to only do that, you know, not to have like a good like mix of like,
yeah,
I'm gonna go be social.
Yeah.
But to like isolate yourself.
And it wasn't so much that he did find himself in a world of his own, but he just thought that other people just weren't really worthy of it. He was just like, these people suck. And that's why he took to bullying too. Because he was just like, I don't care what you think. Like, I'm going to do my own thing.
Yeah.
Because he had the personality of, he had a very large ego. And he thought he could do no wrong, that everything that had to be done. Because he did that too with his, pretty much how he ran battles and stuff. He didn't listen to what any other people kind of strategized. He did what he strategized. He was stubborn. Like, this is what I think is going to happen or what we should do, and we're going to do it.
Dang.
Yeah, he was that kind of person. The worst.
Fun.
Napoleon was in a world of his own, or I already read that. He wanted to become a hero of his own. So he wanted to be the high and mighty. He wanted to do the best. He wanted to be the best. A love that shaped him wanting to become a leader himself was because of his aspirations to be like Paoli. Napoleon loved his country, but he respected the fight that Paoli put in for his country. Though Paoli did not win the fight, he did make capital gain in the mess of it all. So he just looked up to him. Like, if anybody talks smack or something, he would be right on you, just like, and give you all the information, like, just dumped you with information on, like, why he was so great and why everybody should be a part of a republic and da-da-da-da-da. And people are like, I asked you how your day was. Like...
It's one of those people.
Yeah. He
can't just say good. Can, you know. We all know someone like that.
Oh, yeah, I sure do. Now, Napoleon would continue for years on his mild obsession with Paoli, making him out to be the best role model anyone could have. Little foreshadow, even though I'm telling you, is that he meets him. Not as great of a role model.
Figured. That usually
Never
happens.
meet your role models.
Yeah. They'll ruin it for you.
He wanted to be a leader like him, which in a sense he kind of did. And when I was reading into just like the aggressive nature that Paoli took into like his resistance and stuff like that, I was like, looks a lot like how Bonaparte does it. Just going straight in.
Huh.
Just wanting to take it all. And that's exactly what Paoli did too. So I'm like, you can see kind of where he gets his aspirations from.
Yeah.
In these early years of Napoleon, he entered a boarding school at age 5 and by 7 started to learn French by a man named Abbé Recco. By 1778, Napoleon and Joseph would leave home to go to his future destiny, France.
Oof.
Yeah. So, because I guess I don't know what language they spoke. I guess I didn't even think to look that up. But it wasn't French. He didn't know French. This dude isn't French. yet he becomes France's emperor. And he considers himself, side note, to be like an heir of Charlemagne.
Oh.
Yeah, and he considers himself to be French. And
okay.
You were born in France, dude. You were born
Interesting.
in Genoa/Corsica. Like, the fuck?
Get it right.
I guess because, like, it technically is, like, a territory of France, that he is kind of French, but I'm not going to count that because it's Napoleon.
You weren't from there, so.
In France, they would go to a clerical school in Autun to learn more of their French. Their aim was to be perfect and fluent. He did not stay here long before he would move on to go to a military academy in Brienne. The only way he could get into the school was due to his father's connections.
Oh.
Yeah. Lucky he did have those connections, because it would make him be the successful French leader who he would become. So going to the military academy, which is literally military school. So as you can see by that, more isolation.
Fun.
Great. Yes.
Just what we need.
Oh, yes. More isolation from a guy who's been having it since he was born. Oh, God.
Cool.
You would think this would be a good start for Napoleon in becoming a good leader, but he was not all cut out for the academy. He was an outsider who had a bad attitude and was not meeting the marks. And the funny thing is that he was not making the physical marks that he needed to make. And I was like, I wonder why.
Oh, man. Jeez. He's probably like, oh, I broke a nail. Oh, no.
I mean, every single leader was a fashion statement at this time. Like, freaking look at the book. He's like wearing some tight pants.
Oh, my God. He thinks he's a shit.
Oh, yeah, he does. Of course he does. He had a huge ego. He loved himself very much. I think
Narcissist.
I think he was a bit of a narcissist, to be honest.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah, because he thought his ideas were like the greatest ever.
Yeah.
And he would do everything to make sure his ideas were heard.
I mean, it makes sense if you're not getting that attention as a child.
Oh, yeah. You had to like literally get on a soapbox and just scream at everybody. To be like, listen to me.
Oh, my God.
I don't know if he did that, but like,
Listen.
I can just imagine.
And everyone's just ignoring him.
Pretty much. If anyone would speak ill of Corsican society, Corsican, he would flip his shit and go on again about how great of a place it is. He did not fit in, and the schools and the kids at the school made note of that. They're like, oh God, look at Napoleon. Like with Joseph, people are like, oh my God, look at Joseph. He's so great. Oh my God. And then they're like, oh, there's Napoleon.
Napoleon's like, oh my God, everyone loves me.
Yeah.
And they're actually like, ew.
Pretty much. It's a wild ride.
You can't stay with us.
Pretty much. Napoleon didn't even try to make friends. He instead bullied and isolated himself from others and go into the library and read more of his books.
Oh my God.
So they would go out for recess or whatever. And they would be like, oh, you want to play hopscotch? And he would be like, fuck you, bitches. I'm going to go read. Y'all suck. Your hair's messed up.
He seems so nice. What a great guy.
Pretty much. Now, removing himself from his family at being in school and socializing with other kids, his behavior only worse. So he didn't see his family for, I think, like 3 years while he was away. So I'm like, how would he even remember his family? Because he was still pretty young. But I guess he did.
Interesting.
I mean, I'm pretty sure, I believe his dad came a couple of times, but like with his other siblings and his mom and stuff, he hadn't seen them in a hot minute. So like he was homesick too.
Gotcha.
And so a lot of people are like, this dude is no fun. He's such a party pooper because he's like missing home and he doesn't want to like participate in anything and doesn't want to like work with anybody. It's like, how is he going to be a good leader if he's not working with people?
Yeah. It's a fair concern.
Yes. While his removal from others became apparent, Napoleon fell in love with history. of the ancients. One that he looked up to and their power was Julius Caesar.
Oh.
Which makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Because Julius Caesar went around the world, making lands his, doing dirty, and Napoleon did the same damn thing.
Damn.
He literally just copied, in a sense of like, he took those people and really made it his life of like what he wanted to do as a leader. Wow. He was like, I'm going to do it this way. It's going to be a little bit different, but I still want it. The one thing that he did do differently as a leader is that he actually participated in the battles, because I think he just loved bloodshed in a sense of that. He loved the act of planning for wars and being a part of them. Whereas like a lot of other leaders, they're just in the background, not really doing much, but he wanted to be a part of it.
That makes sense.
So I guess that makes him as like a good military leader of wanting to be there with your men, but also when like as soon as he got bored of it or something else was more appealing to him, he'd be like, I'm leaving you in charge, deuces.
He probably did it just to like get the credit.
Oh, he did 100%.
Yeah, it wasn't to like help them out. It was just like,
I think for next week's episode there is a point that he didn't deserve the glory that he got.
oh, cool.
This dude stumbled through life. Yeah, and his siblings are the one who helped. Is the one who helped him.
Dang.
So go figure. Well, okay, where am I? Okay, he saw the men who murdered him of Julius Caesar. He saw the men who murdered him as traitors and the great power and leadership Julius had leading up to his death. So pretty much anybody that he looked up to, like, because Julius Caesar had like, I don't think getting stabbed 13 times was necessary, but like him being removed definitely was the wear, but he didn't see it like that. He thought of Julius Caesar as like the best leader on the planet Earth. He was like, he's great. I love him so much. He would continue through school and eventually graduate in 1784. So he was about 17, 16.
Okay.
Because 89 would make him 20. So I think he was like, what, 16? 16?
Yeah.
Yeah. Something like that.
15, 16.
15, 16. So he was young. He was a young leader, very, very young. So I was like, he didn't have any wrinkles yet. From this school, Napoleon would learn that he had ambitions on being a successful leader and that he could do it. He would go out on to spend another year at another military academy called École Royale Militaire in Paris. This academy was extremely difficult to get into, as it favored nobility to get into this education program more than just like your average person who got into like any military academy. But Napoleon got into it by his intelligence. He was actually pretty smart. And I mean, like, he read all the time.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. Like, he would study like crazy because he didn't have friends.
I would hope that he'd be smart at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
After all that reading.
Well, he actually is a very good, he was really good at making plans for like invasions and battles and like battle strategy. He was really, really good at, he just didn't like to listen to anybody else, which was a problem. And of course, like if his plan was failing, he would be like, I don't know why this isn't working.
God.
Yeah. Well, in the course, Carlo would pass away in February of 1785. Oh. Napoleon would get word of this months later, and the financial troubles he finally started hearing about following his father's death. Knowing that he still had 2 years to finish of his military academy, Napoleon took that challenge and completed it into 1 year.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. He did not get first in his class, but he did finish. I believe he got like 42nd place.
42nd?
Yeah. Yeah.
Dang.
But he... that's still pretty good for someone who researched all of that and studied and took everything in 1 year just so he could graduate to go back home. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Napoleon would return home to be with his family and take charge for the time being. I am assuming that Joseph was still in some schooling because I couldn't really see that if he was being like that main figure for the house. But I think Napoleon was like, dude, just do what I got this handled. And Joseph was like, whatever. That following year, Napoleon would return to the real world and start his position as an artillery officer.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. As well as being an officer, it was when Paoli returned to Corsica.
Oh, jeez.
That Napoleon joined him in the civil war on the side of the nationalist. Because Napoleon was he wanted a republic. He didn't like the royalist. He kind of he wanted something new and something different than what France was having. Because this was peak French Revolution.
Yeah.
All this shit was going on. They're trying to figure out like a new way to have a new constitution, a new, like pretty much a new setup for their government, for the French government. Mm-hmm. And for him, he was just like, whatever, I'm going to join Paoli like my dad did. And Napoleon was actually pissed at his dad at one point and called him out of like, how dare you go against Paoli and his side with France? Like, I don't get why you could do that to him. His dad was like, I didn't want us to get murdered, so shut the front door.
Yeah, saved your ass.
It was not soon after that Napoleon would tie himself to a party. With the rise... Oh, wait, hold on. Oh, I skipped a whole paragraph. Cut that out. Oops.
Whoopsie.
This allegiance to Paoli did not last long. He tried to give his inputs to Paoli, but was turned away in return. Napoleon decided that he no longer wanted to support his role model because he had his own ideas and he said them to Paoli. It was like, I have these great battle strategies on how we can do this. I think this is the way that we should do it. And he was like, kid, no. He's like, you don't know what you're doing. I'm handling this. I don't need your opinion. And he took that offensively. He was just like, how dare you? I'm not going to be a part of this party anymore, or a part of you. I'm going to be on the opposite side. I don't care. Like, he just went on. Damn. Yeah, he took that as I think he was just upset because he looked up to this guy since he was a child.
Oh, yeah.
And to be turned away by him and to not really have that acceptance that he believed that he would have.
Uh-huh.
So that pissed him off.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Napoleon decided that he no longer wanted to support his role model and the country grew up in, now falling apart. So Corsica was not doing so hot with the whole civil war going on. Instead, he decided to move his family back to move them to France.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And going back to France, Napoleon would join the French military. He would be stationed in Nice in 1793. It was not soon after that Napoleon would tie himself to a party, of course, because he always has to tie himself to something, because he wanted to see if he could get power out of it, that he could become the big guy in that certain party. And if someone rejected him, he was like, I got to move on, because one of them will secede to me at some point. So he could just kept hopping around doing whatever.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. With the rise of people going against the monarchy, the French Revolution was starting to creep his way in. Moving to Paris, Napoleon left behind the homeland that he once was so fond of. Because of Paoli and his desires that would not favor from the Bonaparte household and the Jacobians, not good enough really in a sense, like he kind of was like, hey, but he was like, meh. Corsica was now nothing more than a place he no longer favored. Napoleon moving to Paris would consider himself now a French citizen. Working with the French military, Napoleon decided that it was his involvement with the revolution that had to be made. Hold on. I didn't go through my notes before I came here, so I'm just like,
It's probably a lot of notes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. His involvement with the revolution had to be made known to the higher officials. He was told to worry about his place in artillery. Now, Napoleon did not listen to that very well.
Of course he didn't.
No. Instead, he wanted to make his name known and did just that in the siege of Toulon. The siege of Toulon was against the French Republicans and the royalist rebels that had help from the Spaniards. Napoleon at this time was now captain of his unit after Commander de Martin was wounded. I can't talk either. You literally put this on me.
I know, I'm sorry.
This accelerated his ego. So this guy he was the captain. He got wounded, and so they're like, Napoleon, I guess you're in. And he was like, okay, boys, let's do this.
He's like, I've been waiting for this moment. Let's go.
Let's go. Gathering his gunnery and a group of people by his side, Napoleon created a plan with the artillery that he had collected, including supplies, animals, and weapons from the area. So pretty much he had his men go out and steal shit from the people.
Fun.
Yes. So this was in Italy.
Okay.
Yeah. The plan that he concluded was to capture 2 forts on Cairo Hill. So it was Egulet, and Balaguer. This plan would give them control between the inner and outer harbor and leave any of those fighting against them without any exports coming in. Napoleon would be successful in this plan, and it was even known that he rode horseback on the final fight. So this was pretty big. This got him kind of a name, but it also just, they were like, oh, he's more than talk.
Yeah.
Because he was more talk than he was game at first, but then he finally got the chance to be more than talk. The name of Napoleon Bonaparte was starting to be known within the military sphere. And with his success, Napoleon would be promoted to brigadier general. The glory that he felt he deserved would not last long, as relationships with others started to be a brief downfall in the military. After the strained relationship with Paoli, when Napoleon came to France, he started a new correlation with siding with the revolutionary leader, Maximilien Robespierre. This guy would fuck up his life for a little bit, but he also fucked his own life, so... This man started the reign of terror that would execute and take to violent measures to those against the revolution. It is... I did a little bit of research into it, and I was like, holy shit. Like, there was a lot of people who died. Like, thousands of people who died.
Damn.
A special execution style used was the guillotine.
Ah.
Because that's French. Yeah. And I think it was pretty new for, like, a new execution style that the French loved. Like, they would literally have people come out to the quads to watch this. Like, children would sit in trees and watch it and cheer, and they would get super drunk. Like, there would be beer everywhere. People would drink. They'd be like, "Are you ready for the execution?" They're like, "Hell yeah, bring it."
Oh my god.
Yeah, it was a whole charade thing. It was wild. Executions were legit.
Yeah.
Like, it was literally like a mini fair. It's really sad.
It's so crazy.
Napoleon did not care for the methods that Robespierre used, but he followed the reason behind wanting to rid of those not wanting to be part of the rebellion. He wanted something different for the country. And though he didn't care for, like, the terror that Robespierre would put onto people, he was just like, the people who don't support it, kill them. He's like, I don't care.
Of course not.
Yeah.
Just get rid of him.
Yep. Sounds about right. Now, the downfall of Robespierre and his brother Augustin came in July of 1794 when they were arrested and without trial were executed guillotine style.
Oh.
Yeah, so they were the ones who were doing that to people, and finally they were arrested, and they were like, you don't get a trial for what you did. for this whole like year or two that you completely rained this terror on all these people. So you're done. You're dead. So it was known that Napoleon sided with the brothers and believed Napoleon could have something to do with it. So he was put under house arrest. He would eventually be released, but he could not join the army as the title he had. So he was no longer a brigadier general. Instead, he was given the task to make up plans for invading Corsica. So pretty much just like, hey, do you want to like invade again the place that you grew up? And he was like, I don't care. Let's do it.
I don't care. Whatever you say.
Pretty much. As more battles started to continue throughout France, Napoleon watched on the sidelines as bigger battles ensued. Oh, excuse me. And his big moment at Toulon was becoming nothing more than a memory. So he was like, I did this. And they're like, who cares? That was like 2 years ago. More important battles have happened. And then he got sad.
He's like, I thought I was special.
Now, let's just say that Napoleon was not doing so good in his life at this point. It was kind of a hot mess. He was just like, I'm not famous anymore. Even though he wasn't really famous.
You just thought he was.
Yeah, and he's just like, I don't know what to do. Like, they thought I was a part of them. I kind of was, but like, I wasn't.
Yeah.
Again, this all changed in October of 1795. At the peak of the Revolutionary Wars in France, it was instigated by the Royalists to declare a rebellion in Paris. Napoleon took charge as leader of the attack when he was not able to go to Turkey to fight the Ottomans and found himself in the middle of the fight in Paris. He offered what he could do to formulate a plan and direct those who were going against the Directory. So the Directory, to give just brief, were in charge of the government at this point. So they were the ones who were making a lot of the like laws and plans, just keeping the government somewhat stable. So he would go to the Directory and be like, hey, I'm here for you guys. Like, I can help out. Like, I have this bad name, but I swear I wasn't a part of it. Just let me help you. Like, you have a royalist coming in. Like, if you don't win, it's going to be all for nothing. And they're like, okay, fine, fine. People were actually surprised when Napoleon started to give direct orders and take charge as if nothing of it was overwhelming. He was just like, do this, get in line. And people were like, oh, okay. But by the end of the fight, over 1,400 royalists were killed and many others had fled. This would explode Napoleon's career. With him taking charge and being like, hey, I can help, and him actually helping, he exploded. But this would also increase his ego again.
Of course.
He was like, I'm so great, I did this.
He can't be humble. It's too much.
Yes. A man from the name of Barras with this victory became the leader of the Directory and probably gave Napoleon a new title of Major General. So he was pretty high up there. Now, this new title would make Napoleon quite the popular and wealthy man. So he got a lot of money for having this title. So he started, because before this, he was having some pretty hard troubles. Instead of being frugal and getting money from Joseph in order to survive on the streets of Paris, Napoleon now had a residence in Vendôme. He went to the best salons and even got himself a wife.
Ooh, okay.
Now, to make a side note of Napoleon is that he was actually quite the ladies' man.
What?
Yeah. He had a lot of affairs. His first wife was Rose de Beauharnais, who he rebaptized as Josephine in 1796.
Oh.
He did this with his other wife, too, I believe. He rebaptized, or I think he even did it like with his affairs that he had. He would like rebaptize the women and give them different names. That
he just wanted the power once again.
Yeah, he just wanted the power, and he knew that he could do it.
Dang.
She was a wife of a nobleman, but before Napoleon, but he was executed during the Reign of Terror. because he, of course, being a nobleman, did not support the revolution because he loved the monarchy the way that it was.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he was. I'm surprised she didn't get executed. But then again, she had nothing to do with it in the sense that she was just married.
Right.
This marriage would put Napoleon on a higher status because she was technically a noblewoman. But that didn't mean that he would stay faithful.
Of course not.
Throughout his life, Napoleon would have many affairs wherever he conquered. He conquered a lot.
Oh, jeez.
Soon after his marriage, Napoleon would find himself as the commander of the army in Italy. So I don't think Toulon was in Italy. I think it was somewhere else. I retract my statement that Toulon was in Italy. I can't remember where it was. It just said Toulon.
That's okay.
I wish I'd looked that up before, but I guess...
Just pretend you never heard that. It's not in Italy.
With an enlarged ego of wanting to take the glory of anything he does, Napoleon was quite controlling when it came to being in command. No shock there. The Directory and the people he was in charge of were annoyed by his constant need to be controlling the situations and only doing the plans he thought of. So people would be like, oh, what are we... So this is a possibility that we could do. And he would just be like, no, we're doing my plan.
Because I'm always right.
I'm always right. While in Italy, Napoleon was given the task to defeat the Austrians in the northern part of Italy. He maneuvered his army and tricking the Austrian army, run by General Belleau, and convincing and being in the Brochette Pass when he was crossing the Apennines. So he pretty much gave Austrians the runaround, thinking that, oh, yeah, he was like, we're totally going to be in this area. And he's like, the other general was like, okay, we're not going to be there.
That's what you think.
And then Napoleon was like, we're not going to be there. Now, Napoleon knew Belleau's moves and won the Battle of Montagnat. This would be Napoleon's first victory as a commander. So, shocking. The next year, Napoleon would continue his campaign in Italy, finally fighting battles like the victory of Lodi and besieging Mantua with 50,000 soldiers. Many times, the Austrians tried to bring relief to Mantua, but each time Napoleon was swoop right in and pushed them out. It was when Napoleon threatened that he would move this war up to Vienna that the Austrians finally held their hands up and surrendered with the Treaty of Campo Formio. Ending the war, this would end the War of the First Coalition. So this was like big wars that were going on throughout Europe, pretty much. There's like 3 separate coalitions that go on, and he ended the first one technically.
Gotcha.
Now, Napoleon would leave in victory, starting his great future for France. So that's the end of part 1. We did a little bit of introductory for him and kind of just got him his stable feet as commander for the French.
Dun, dun, dun.
There was so much when I was reading. I was like, oh my God, why, dude? Why do you participate in so much? But like his popularity, it's literally like Hollywood, because he would be popular he would be like a viral video.
Oh, yeah.
So he would be super popular at one point, and then it would become irrelevant. And so he was like, okay, I got to do something to get me more relevant again. What can I do?
Yeah.
And then he does some crazy shit again, and then he becomes relevant again. So it pretty much goes like that. Pretty much. He wants to be a trendsetter.
I don't love it.
Napoleon Bonaparte, the trendsetter.
Oh my God. He's such a drama queen.
Oh my God, he is. He is crazy. But yeah, that is dun, 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 part 1.
I didn't know he was such a narcissist, but I guess that makes sense.
He had such a big ego.
Yeah.
Ego.
So I guess that's what I learned from this episode.
Yeah, I learned a lot about this dude in the first part that I was researching. I was just like, is there any more wars that you need to talk?
Right.
Which this is, for this series that I'm doing on him, it's not everything
Right.
that is Napoleon Bonaparte. I highly recommend you read this book because it does discuss a lot more. But this would be a whole freaking Napoleon Bonaparte could be a whole podcast by itself.
Yeah.
Because there's so much to him. Like, I'm not going to
We're not
cover
going to do a 10-parter.
everything. No, that would be super long and I would just die. I mean, people do their dissertations on this guy because there's so much documented on him. So, and he made sure, I'm sure, to be documented.
Yeah, he's like, guys, don't forget. Don't forget about me.
Yes. So for this, I'm doing a lot of the just kind of bringing a flow of just kind of like a timeline of just like important key things that are Napoleon Bonaparte's life, but also just kind of more in-depth things as well of just that make him who he is.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Cool. I'm excited for the rest.
So yeah, stay tuned for part 2 next week. It's going to be pretty good because we'll lead up to when he is crowned as emperor. Woo!
All right.
So we will catch you next week. Where can you find us?
So you can find us on Instagram. We're doing a behind the scenes thing today. So it's going to be in our, what's it called? Like the stories. We're going to have a whole thing that you can see it after the 24 hours. So you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube at Historia the Podcast. You can email us at historiathepodcast@gmail.com if you have any requests, comments, or stories. Yeah. I'd love to hear them. Mm-hmm. All right. We will catch you next week.
Bye.
Goodbye.